let's do this and go enjoy our spring break. Before I go on, just to let you know, and today I got a call from the coach of our soccer team. So last year, the baseball team did like a summer league of what's the word I want to use? They had baseball games, but they were non-conference and they weren't part of the official NCAA schedule. And the soccer team is going to do the same thing this summer. The Boone baseball team was called the Boone Bigfoots, and the soccer team is going to be called the Sasquatches, I believe. What they want to do is they want to see about the possibility of interns for the summer. You would work for App State's soccer team. They would be not officially sanctioned matches, but they're going to have a summer league. It'll start in May and it'll end in June. If any of you would like the possibility of interning for that, it's a great summer opportunity for those of you who were needing an internship or close to graduation. Also, of course, you'll be paid for it. And also, it's in Boone. So if you needed or wish to stay in the summer for whatever reason in Boone, it's an opportunity to do that as well. They've also got this whole plan going on where they're also planning to create jobs in the spring as well. And excuse me, what I mean is that they plan on doing during their season, they're talking about having students do all of the marketing things, even like take tickets and help them out instead of having, individuals, through their system who have to do this instead. They would like to have students to do this as well. It would also connect with marketing. So for those of you that would also work in social media, so you would have that opportunity as well. If you're interested, please email me, put together a one-page resume or whatever, and I'll be happy to send it on. So it's just an opportunity out there. It's a good one. And so hopefully if it matches your summer plans, please let me know. Okay, back to work. So, let's see, excuse me. So we talked about retail positioning strategies and, let's see. We talked about retail positioning strategies, and the ones that we talked about the both sides of the aisle. So we started talking about, you have two ways in which you can hopefully generate money or be able to be successful. You can either increase revenues or you can decrease or optimize costs. And so what we talked about on Tuesday were cost optimization strategies. And so what we're going to talk about now is revenue generating retail positioning strategies. These are demand side positioning strategies. Now you probably will remember them, or we probably talked about them, but these are, for all the purposes when we're talking about the test, these would be the ones that you would study, okay? So the first is breaking bulk. So manufacturers, in order for them to be able to produce goods, must produce them in enormous quantities. But unfortunately, consumers just want to consume one. And so what you find is that as a service that retailers do, what they'll do is they buy in large quantities and they offer consumers in sizes that they exactly want. My wife and I were talking about going on our spring break when our girls' spring break is ready. And we were talking about things that we were going to do. One of the things about we always like to do also is that we prefer condos or those kind of things versus hotel rooms. We like to have, a kitchen. We like to be able to do those things. It's so much easier on all of us. One of the things that she also buys is she will buy dishwashing liquid in like that size. And when I say that it's that size, it is, and I have a bottle that's 5 to 10 times bigger. And I am sure you're not going to be surprised when I tell you that the little size bottle costs as much as the big one. All right. We don't buy any little ones anymore, by the way. We keep that one and we buy a big one and fill it up. So why? Well, because the sizes have more value to the consumers in that size, especially when you're traveling than with a bigger size. As a matter of fact, as we shrink in size, the smaller we shrink, we actually increase the value because it becomes the sizes that consumers exactly want. So if you notice, you're starting to see consumer sizes under a magic number, which is 100 calories. So even where you have large candy bars, when you see those, it's not surprising that the candy bars are now 2 bars inside versus 1 giant bar. And it's what they'll do is that they'll tell the number of serving sizes, and the serving sizes will tell you that number of calories, and generally the calorie intake is below 100 calories. We just like it when it's smaller, all right? And I don't care what they say, I'm not going to tear and share my M&Ms, okay? I'll buy another pack. So that's bulk breaking. Spatial convenience basically has to deal with any of those products classified as convenience goods. Usually, if they're in that convenience good, what that also says is it's the extent of searching or shopping activity that the consumer is willing to undertake for those particular goods. It is not a surprise whatsoever is that convenience stores, if you notice, they contain impulse items and staples. And so impulse items that are bought with very little or no effort whatsoever, you don't spend 30 minutes trying to decide whether to buy a Coke or whether to buy a Pepsi. You just know in your mind which one of those you're going to want to buy. It's that basic, okay? So when it comes to spatial convenience stores are built around convenience goods. I can also say they're built around staples as well. And staples are those goods that we buy every day. Bread, eggs, milk. Those are the butter. Those are the items that we buy every day at Staples. And it's not unusual, by the way, that if you notice a Dollar General, the Dollar General has a mixture of shopping and convenience goods in there because some goods require very little or no effort at all to make those choices. It's also kind of interesting that you find all the staples right up front. It's interesting also that my wife had remarked if they only had vegetables there, and if you actually see in the frozen food section, they actually have vegetables there now. If they had organic milk, we'd never go to another supermarket again. So, spatial convenience. Waiting and delivery time has changed dramatically. You know, retailers must gauge how damaging out of stock occurrences will be, but they're not as damaging as they were, let's say, 2 years ago, especially when you factor in what the pandemic has done. We find if they are staples, items that you expect to get every day, those out of stock situations are considered much more consternation than specialty items. It's interesting when Nintendo came out with the Wii. I remember I was in the computer industry at the time, and there were two things about 12 months, 18 months before they announced they had said that Nintendo was coming out with a user interface that was going to change everything. And when the Wii was announced, Nintendo was somewhere around 6 months from bankruptcy. Well, for about 3.5 to 4 years after that, you couldn't buy a Wii in the month of November. They were literally sold out 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. That's how popular they were. And yet, that popularity and that out of stock actually fed into the purchases of Wii's for those first 4 years, because the desire to have something that was considered out of stock actually drove it to become even more out of stock. It's just kind of those things with people. Now, the next thing, product variety and assortment, I want to give you a couple of seconds to kind of digest. And I've got this little graphic here that ought to make it a little bit easier for you to understand, because it does kind of be confusing every once in a while. All right. So what do I mean by assortment and variety? This will help you to understand it. All right. Variety is the different classes of goods. Okay. It is the breadth. All right. This is variety this way. Assortment is the different types of goods within a product classification. And that is the depth of the product brands. And that's what's known as assortment, or what's known as depth. Okay. So what does this mean, and how does this work out when we talk about going to the supermarket? If I were to go to a Walmart, to a Lowe's, if I were to go to a Harris Teeter, and I were to look at their goods, I would find that there's very little difference between those three when it comes to the breadth of items. When it comes to the breadth of the variety of items. The variety of items in a Walmart is pretty close to the variety of items in any normal supermarket. It is when we talk about the depth, that is the difference between a supermarket and a Walmart. And so what would be an example of this? Let's just say this is one classification and it's mustard. I actually did this today. I had to go to Walmart. They had cut some pictures wrong. So I went to the Walmart and I looked at the number of different mustards in terms of size, different products, different manufacturers. And I found about 16 or 17 different types of mustards. Yeah, this is what you do when you're a marketing person. So if you go in a Harris Teeter or you go in a Lowe's, the last time I went into Harris Teeter, there were 72 different sizes and varieties of mustard in a Harris Teeter. And so these are the differences between them. Now, interestingly enough, if you go in the Dollar General, you're going to find about 85% of the breadth in a Dollar General that you will in a Walmart. And yet the Dollar General is like 1/50th the size of a Walmart, because they want to be able to carry as much breadth as possible as they can in a small store. Now their depth is only 2 or 3 deep. And so that's the big difference. But when it comes to the variety, okay, for variety, they want to be able to match as closely as they can. Okay. Of all of the command side or the demand side positioning strategies, the one that can set a retailer or an establishment different and separate from the rest is this concept of customer service. I can have the same goods as any other store, and I can still do better than the other store if I offer services that you can't find at another location. So I talked about this before. When Lexus came out, of course, Lexus is Toyota. What made Lexus so unique and different, and how are they able to separate Lexuses from Toyotas in general? Well, when they came out, one of the things that Lexus would do is all of the oil changes for the first 3 years or 36,000 miles were free. So what that meant is that every 3,000 miles, you could come in, change your oil, and Lexus would do that for nothing. So what did that do? Well, in terms of a service, it enormously increased the value of a Lexus. And in terms of product, in terms of the cost of the goods themselves, it might have been $10 or $15 when you talk about wholesale prices of oil, because they don't buy cans of oil, they buy gallons of oil. They have a giant vat with all the oil in it. The other thing that it did for them as well is that in the first 36,000 miles of those Lexus models when they came out, the first thing that they did was they hooked them into their machines and let the machines look at all the wear and tear on these vehicles in their first 3 years. It was genius because all of that data was being collected for free, and they were able to anticipate when changes or difficulties would happen to those Lexuses. So this is an example of when customer service, even though there was not much fundamental differences between the items, where it meant a huge difference. Finally, we have to mention general and administrative expenses, because the one thing that retailing is and probably will always be is it's a labor-intensive industry. Until they find ways of getting robots to stock shelves, which I don't think it's going to happen very soon, I think retailing is always going to be an expensive thing, especially when it comes to labor, and it should be, because retailing in and of itself is a very, what's the word I want to say, person-to-person process. And that interaction between consumers is a very valuable thing. And it adds value to consumers' interaction. Now, the selling general administrative expenses tend to be lower for general merchandise retailers like Walmart, all right? And that's by their very nature, because one of the things within Walmart is you tend to do things in a self-service manner. But any organization that builds in success in one way or another needs to maximize, or optimize their sales. And they need to do that by providing as much as they can, given their expenses. So this last little shot I wanted to show you, this was 2007 numbers. And this is Walmart, the general merchandisers, the category killers, and how they relate in terms of annual sales. If you notice, one of those things that is interesting is the selling and general administrative expenses as a percentage of net sales. If you look at that against a Walmart versus a Costco, twice as much service is done at a Walmart versus Costco. And yet Walmart, at this point, they're selling 481 million. This is 2017. They're in the 600 million a year. They're over $500 million in sales now. But kind of piece this together and look at the selling general administrative expenses as a percentage of net sales. And it's not hard for you to be able to visualize how much more a Kohl's or a JCPenney's or a Nordstrom is, or a Chico's against Walmart. But it's not actually that much difference if you think about it. And as a matter of fact, Walgreens has lower than Walmart does. That happens also is the fact that Walmart has 1.6 million employees. So that's another reason why you have those large SG&A expenses as well. So interesting kind of put together right there. Kind of gives you an idea. Surprisingly, Target has a better, what's the word I want to say, satisfaction level in terms of customer interaction than Walmart does, and Target spends less money on selling and S&GA expenses than Walmart does. Okay. So what is retailing, the channel's been like over the last 5 to 10 years? Well, customers are increasingly comfortable with using multiple channels and different types of outlets to make their purchases, regardless of what that's doing to the channel systems in general. And the purchasing behavior varies not just by segment, but by the reason that they're making the purchases in the first place. So I'm gonna skip a couple of slides ahead, and I'm gonna get to this slide and kind of give you an idea of the journey that consumers make when they're coming up with a choice. Now, if you notice, this is 2012, but you could probably continue this on, this research on, and I'm sure it's similar today. So consumers take multi-device paths to purchase. 65% start on a smartphone. Of that 65%, 61 change to a PC or a laptop, and then they ultimately might continue with a tablet. You can actually visualize this in your head. So you start on your smartphone when you're trying to come up with general information, you're doing general information searches. And then when you're starting to get serious about the purchase, you use your PC or your laptop because it's a bigger screen, you can put more information out there. It's just easier to visualize on your PC versus your laptop. 25% start on the laptop, and people are satisfied with that because of those 25%, only 1 out of 5 move to a smartphone. Maybe you get all your work done on the PC, and then maybe you're just looking and browsing for prices at the end. And then of that group, 11% start on a tablet, and then 10% of that group continue on to a PC. What this does basically is it shows you just how convoluted the channel systems are, and yet we desire that. We want that because, once again, cross-channel work means more money is spent than just online only. So the internet retail channel is basically about 2.29 trillion as of 2017. The dominant thing, what are the 3 things that people do online? And this is important to think about too, is they use it for convenience, ease of use, and the speed of access. What it means is that traditional transaction kinds of interactions, ones that may be habitual, those you do strictly on the internet retail environment. But when the sale becomes more complex, you move to other ways of doing it. I'll talk about that in a minute. Direct selling is, by the way, any selling that's done in a face-to-face manner away from a fixed retail location. Usually direct selling is also done where the good has to be experienced to be appreciated. So they talk about Mary Kay here, they talk about Pampered Chef. 20 years ago, actually, I sold Pampered Chef. I did it because I liked some of the things that they had. And once again, these goods, in order to be appreciated, need to be experienced. So cosmetics need to be tried on, show you how to use it, what's the proper way of applying it. Pampered Chef, what's the best way of being able to cook particular items? What are the best tools to use to cook those things as well? If you've ever cooked with a wok and you've never done that before, it's a different experience from using a frying pan. So the direct selling channel is a vital and important retail channel. The last one is the hybrid channels, and this is where there's really no single form that is sufficient to do everything. So there's some firms that are pure online sellers, but they combine brick and mortar with their online selling strategies. And I'll give you an example, especially if it is an item that requires risk. And so this is an example. I bought a 75-inch television when I achieved tenure. I got my wife's permission before she saw how big it was. And I did all of the research that you do. I started out on my smartphone. I went to the PC. I was looking at the different brands. I decided that the Samsung QLED 75 4K UHD is what I wanted. But even then, even though I knew that, I had to go to a Walmart and I had to see the picture and I had to convince myself that that was it. And as I've said before, 42% of all electronics are bought online, but 2/3 of those individuals need to go in the stores and experience it first before they'll actually purchase it, and that's what I did. I finally chose Walmart, by the way, for a couple of reasons. One of them is that Walmart, when I ordered it online, they would deliver it to my door. Not only did the guy deliver it to my door, he brought it inside my house and he actually helped me unpack it. And that was a blessing to have somebody help me, okay? So the hybrid retail channel is a combination of brick and mortar strategies with online selling strategies, and the channels work together to provide a success, okay? The problem with hybrid channels is that they create channel conflict, and broad channel awareness means that you have to be aware of these things and you have to be able to provide performance rewards so that the channel members continue to be motivated to perform according to the design. So Callaway golf clubs, when they came out, and I've talked about this before, were match weapons. In other words, they were built towards each individual. They were sold in pro shops, which are stores that are connected with golf courses. In 2007, they decided that they were going to sell online, and the pro shops erupted because that's where pro shops make money, off of selling golf clubs. It's not on green fees. And so what this meant is that Callaway, what they did was whenever they were ordered online, they were shipped to the pro shops, and the pro shops were there to deliver the goods to the consumer. They would come in, and of course, the pro shops would try to sell up and have them buy other things as well. There needs to be a seamless experience in order for all of this to be successful. Unfortunately, it's not always successful all the time. So the last thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about power. And so where is the power in retail in the relationship to channels? In 1996, I believe it was Parsimon wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal, not the Wall Street Journal, the Harvard Business Review. And he said that power had fundamentally changed forever, shifting from the manufacturer to the retailer. So what did he mean? Well, he meant that the effect of one single partner by the name of Walmart, in essence, changed the power structure to what it is today, and it has only gotten worse, for the lack of a better word. The retailers dominate the P&Gs and the Colgates and the Crafts and the Cloroxes in the world. Why? Well, because of several different factors, and I'm just going to go through them, not one at a time, but just I'm going to skip around. The biggest problem is that there's so many other alternatives now retailers have, from Procter & Gamble versus Colgate. There are so many different outlets for the same product that you can be successful just by changing product lines. This is why you can have stores as unique as Aldi or a Dollar General that are successful in their models, even though essentially in terms of product categories, they're selling very much the same things at Walmart. There's so many alternatives right now that retailers can choose which ones they want, all right? Also, you find that this was 2016 or 17, that the number of mass merchandising retailers was approaching saturation. There were simply not any more outlets for the number of retailers that were out there. And you couldn't increase your market share just by changing retailers, because the number of retailers had shrank, and they shrank rapidly, all right? The other things is that retailers seek to improve their productivity and lower costs while they keep their prices the same or lower than competitors. And the only way that they can do that is to expect more concessions from the manufacturers. And then the last thing about it is suppliers were partly to blame for their own weakening positions, because they're the ones that offered the substantial discounts to the retailers. And guess what? The retailers took it. And so that's why they're in the position that they are. And it doesn't seem like these things are going to change. We are in a cycle now, even though retailing is online now is more than ever, that retail generally will have the power until things change, and I'm not sure when that'll be. So given that they have all of this power now, what are some of the effects? Well, retailers have in their toolkit certain things that they can do that enhance their positions and weaken manufacturers. One of the things that they have is what's called forward buying. So forward buying is buying significantly more than a group needs. And generally this is done when the manufacturers will come along and offer substantial price cuts. Sometimes the manufacturer will offer those substantial price cuts because they quite simply have inventory that must be moved out. They need to have room for something else. And so they do that, all right? They use trade promotions. When they engage in this forward buying, the retailers will stockpile. And they'll have goods that have a fairly long shelf life. And it means that they can use those goods up. The disadvantage to the manufacturer, of course, is that it throws off their schedules significantly, because they may have a large purchase in 1 month and then nothing in the next. So slotting allowances came around in the 70s, and it was a way for groceries to be able to bring a new product into the system. And it was a way of creating space in the warehouse or on the shelves. And what slotting allowances did was it said that this is a particular place in the store. We want that particular place, and we will be happy to pay more money for it. Well, the retailers got wind of this, and they said, this is a great opportunity to make more money. Slotting allowances, especially for new products, are critical because these are products that need to be seen. So where are slotting allowances in the supermarkets? If you go in the supermarkets, the slotting allowances are going to be on those locations that have the most traffic. And where is the most traffic in any supermarket? It's on the ends of the aisles. It's the end points. And so just think about it when you're walking down an aisle. Just think walking perpendicular to the aisles. These end pieces are the ones that command the most money. And these are the ones that manufacturers desire the most, because these are the best chances of success. Now, one of those things that I don't like is the concept of a failure fee. So what is a failure fee? A failure fee is a penalty that a manufacturer must pay if their good fails to meet a certain number of items purchased within a given period. So how does this work? I've got this new item in. This item is going to do great. We promise to sell, we will do whatever we can to help you sell 2,000 units in a 6-month period. If we fail to do that, we have to give you $2,000. That's what a failure fee is. I don't like failure fees because basically what it means is that the retailer is banking on your failure. And I don't know if that's a disincentive or not, but I don't like the fact that somebody makes money off of misfortune. There it is. The last of these powerful things that the retailers have is the retailers, despite the fact that they have all the power, have very little margin on manufacturer brands, on loyalty brands like Del Monte, Kraft, just anyone you want to name. Those brands, the supermarkets make maybe 2% off of, and it's very weak. Private label brands are basically those same goods that are put under an individual label that is part of the house. So if we're talking about Walmart, we're talking about Sam's Choice. Those are considered private brands. They've been very popular in Europe. They account for almost half of all sales. You find them in the United States. Do they generate the same amount of loyalty in the United States as Europe? And the answer is no. They provide a certain generic packaging to give the consumer a sufficient idea of their value. They can either be close to looking like the name brand. In other words, they might use colors and fonts that are similar, or they may be a different package entirely, and Sam's Choice is an example of that, all right? They are money-saving but unexciting alternatives to national brands that are heavily advertised. But private label branding is extremely important and extremely valuable to the retail establishments. They offer close substitutes for branded products, and modern retailers are doing this. You will also find them like they're what are called brands for a particular store. So JCPenney brands can be things like collections, such as Jacqueline Smith. Those can be collections as well, and they could be considered private label brands, okay? Retailers decide whether to affiliate with a private label brand. You can either spell it out very clearly in the store, or it's a hands-off strategy, which it's just one other brand in there and they're not really caring or not trying to participate in. If you've ever been in an Aldi, there's an Aldi in Hickory, and the Aldi stores are not much bigger than a Dollar General, but they're laid out entirely different, and nearly 3/4 of the goods that are in an Aldi are private label brands. And so they're very successful, they do quite well, and the products are not that different from the ones that you see anywhere else. The fact that Aldi is able to come into the United States and be successful at it means that there are other stores that can. When IGA, A&P, and a lot of the other smaller supermarkets started to die away when Walmart came in the 90s, they came together under what's called the Independent Grocers Association. They became what are called IGA. They have other stores out now called Save-A-Lots, and they're generally in smaller communities, but they use the Aldi model, and they do have private label brands, and they are moderately successful. but it just shows you the power of a private label brand. Retailers enjoy a much higher gross margin with a private label, whereas Walmart makes 2% on a can of Del Monte peas. On a can of Sam's Choice peas, they make 40% or even 45%. In order for them to make the same profit off of Del Monte peas, somebody would have to buy 20 cans of those peas versus just one can of Sam's Choice. That's also why, to wrap this up in terms of retailing, the real success in retailing is also with the delis, with the bakeries, and with the meat departments, because all of those places are where the stores cut their own meat, where they make their own food, and that's where they enjoy the highest margins. Okay, we're done. I hope you have a great spring break. We will see you back, I believe, on the 15th, and go enjoy yourself. Have a good one.